First time doing this, so it will be easy. It's 6 o'clock, and I think I'll call this meeting to order. Ms. Davis, I think you do the roll call.
Mrs. Pender,
Here.
Dr. Bristol,
Here.
Mrs. Walker,
Here.
Mrs. Patterson,
Here.
and Mr. Browning.
Here.
All members are present. You have a quorum.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Board, at this time for reasons that I'll be explaining. I think I need to adjust this agenda a little bit. I really don't want this committee to be overwhelmed, and I'd like to make sure that each of us are clear with the recent history and how we are here and what the goal is. It's recently come to my attention that there were recommendations that were presented to the school board at a workshop that interim superintendent received direction on and apparently started maybe doing some work on. Therefore, I'd like to stick with the major portion to be an informational/organizational meeting and amend the agenda to postpone the presentation and discussion items to a later time after we receive more direction from the school board in regards to item 4DI. It would be further confusing to move forward without this direction, in my opinion. So, that being said, is there a motion to amend the agenda as described?
A motion to amend.
Second.
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 Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, thank you. Now, for approval of the minutes, which I understand that there are emails that have been sent, and they must be read according to Ms. Davis. So let's see. I'll read those into the record. Ms. Davis, do you usually want name and everything? Okay. From a Joseph Kraus IV. He says, hello to all new members of this committee. The subject is the Equity Committee. Hello to all new members of this committee. As I've read the Desegregation Order, I see this committee will only last a few more years. This year, the board can vote on unitary status, but this committee will remain a couple years after. I feel that we will all have good intentions, and we want everybody to succeed. I've attended this school district since I was a child. I do not feel that every student didn't have the opportunity to achieve the same outcome, no matter how we identify ourselves. All of you on this committee have proven that. It was due to your ambitions, and because of those ambitions, you feel self-worth. Nothing is greater than knowing that you are here because you earned it. Rewards are a great way for encouragement. I believe with equity, you cannot achieve that feeling. You will always feel that you need to rely on something instead of yourself. If we go through history, we can look at some examples. First, we can look at high school or college dropouts. Some of those became very successful, some have not. Second, we can look at ones who never gave up, no matter how hard the struggle. Just finishing up with Black History Month, we can remember those who overcame, defying the odds that this Equity Committee believes is the issue, that somehow it's the system that is why a certain person is doing better than one another, or whatever data you want to examine. I ask, do you actually have all the data? We know that kids perform better when their home situation is the best, when they have somebody at home that is interested in their child's schooling. It does not matter who you identify as. There are those few exceptions that may have a faculty member inspire them to be something great, but they have to have ambition. You can do everything you desire in this committee, but the question is, even if you lead a horse to water, can you make it drink? In translation, a child has to be willing to be at school, or willing or eager to learn to make a difference. You can try parent involvement techniques, but if you cannot get a parent involved, you cannot punish the student. We really need to focus less on the identity politics in our schools and create an environment that's not a one-size-fits-all approach. Not everybody is meant for college. We need to tell these kids that. They are putting themselves into debt because they believe college is the goal. We need to implement a system such as Imagine School has, a micro-society. We need to prepare our kids for the real world. They need to learn how to budget. They need to learn the basic skills in life in order to survive and be self-reliant. We have taken out fundamental classes such as home economics, shop teach various trades, etc. Let's stop looking at numbers and actually try to prepare our kids for the real world. Thank you for your time, Joseph A. Krause IV. The second email comes from Jennifer Pippin to the Equity Committee, subject public input for March 4th meeting. Good morning. I'm absolutely appalled that this was even approved by the SDIRC. This is a total waste of taxpayer dollars. Adding high-cost administrative positions doesn't promote or improve student learning. This falls in line with the left's social agenda and cancel culture. The position has nothing to do with equality or diversity, and social indoctrination is unacceptable in Indian River County. Did you know that they are trying to pass a bill that allows biological boys into the girls' locker rooms, dressing rooms, and restrooms? And then she lists some link. Absolutely unacceptable under any circumstances, and the school board should be protecting children, and as a parent, this would be my breaking point to take my children out of public schooling, as this is insane. The public and parents are absolutely disgusting by this, and you will be getting much pushback from this. And I guess she attached some position, Chief Equity and Diversity Officer. So we have the minutes of August 20th, 2020 Equity Committee meeting, and the minutes of February 11th, 2021 meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
A motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Carol.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next on the agenda, selection of a vice chair. Do we have a motion for a vice chair?
Carol Pender, nominate Carol Briscoe, Vice Chair.
Second. Is moved and seconded. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Now, we're at, here's where I feel like we need to all catch up. Not everybody knows the history of that thing is like in the way. I don't know if it's in somebody's way, this podium here. Does that need to be moved? Or if you want me to move it, I'll move it. I don't know if people care to see or don't care to see, whichever it is. But it's just there. I was trying to see Dr. Jones, and now I can see Dr. Long. Hello. So in this organizational session and trying to bring everybody back up, I received the 2018 organizational joint plan. And just from experience, I happen to know that there was more than a 2018 joint plan. Therefore, I asked Dr. Moore, thank you, Dr. Moore, where are you? Asked Dr. Moore to send the rest of those, and he did. So there were quite a few plans, as you see, and you'll see actually how long we've been at this. Before we get into those, I will have Ms. Green, when I'm done, near the end, because she knows exactly what happened before we got here, so I will ask her to help me out a little bit. So on the other day, just so you know, committee, I had a very informational Teams meeting with Dr. Moore and his cabinet. I'd like to thank you, Dr. Moore, for that meeting. Got some information, actually quite a lot of it. We had the beginning of what we'll call some very difficult discussions or conversations that we're just all going to have. We talked about a few things, like the big elephant in the room. Been sitting in the room for 50 years, and he's eating peanuts and watching us. Sometimes it feels like he's throwing peanuts back at us. So we talked about mindset in that meeting, and I shared with the team my experience of how when I was in HR, one of the principals said to me, I have one black, and I don't need another. And that I was informed that somebody recently said, I hired my black, as far as a black employee or black teacher. And kudos to that. Thank you for the effort. But my question to Dr. Moore was, and to the committee is that the mindset? Will that mindset continue of just one or two is all you need? We spoke of teacher comfortability and treatment. We know of a situation why a whole group of black employees would leave one school and go to another because they feel they get fairer treatment at another place. And if we're going to have the difficult conversations, I think we just need to have them. So that was my discussion with him. We spoke of a time passing in a snail pace or no changes at all. There are some schools that have the same or less black employees than 12 years ago when I sat in the HR office. One of them has the same employee. So in 12 years, it seems like we couldn't find somebody else. And I just want to tell you some of the things that I know happen. The excuses have been, well, there are so many few African Americans going into education. Or we hire at the beginning of the year and terminate at the end of the year. Or wait a minute, I'll hire, and then oops, I have no more positions. And that's when one of the superintendents put a freeze on hiring until we started making progress. Said to schools, you won't hire anymore until we have this, because I had a group of black employees that some principals were trying to skirt around. I'm so glad that era is over and we're in a new mindset and a new era. So, oh, there's another one. We can't find qualified applicants. So when you hired the other 90% of the school, you were able to find qualified applicants. But with that wording, I see in some of the reports, we come down to when we're looking for, we have to put this qualifier on black applicants. And that's a mindset change. Maybe that's a discussion. I don't know what it is, but that is coming from a person who experienced that in the district. And I understand that sometimes it's still there. So we need mindset change in conversations. But I think and I hope that we have the right time, the right board, the right people in the district to make the effective effort, and we also have to make the right informed decisions. Therefore, I'd like to take a few minutes to bring us all up to speed. And if I can bore you just a few minutes, I'll be quick. So we all know 1954 Brown v. Board, Thurgood Marshall, and all deliberate speed. That's why I asked for copies of these. When that time passed with no action from 54 to 67, then Mr. Sharpton filed this lawsuit, and this order talks of school choice, allowing blacks to choose a school, also of facilities equalization, hiring of blacks or African Americans. And on page 10, it says, and I'm saying this because I'm coming back to it, where more than one teacher, white or Negro, shall be on a desegregated faculty. Terminations or dismissals were reported with the reasons for the termination in the clerk's office. Then we had the order in 1994, and that order held that each school should have at least 2 black teachers per school and meet the percentage of blacks in the county and perform this without transferring these teachers. And 20 to 40% of the hires are African American, not to be done by shifting teachers. And finally, we move up to the 2018 Desegregation Order, and in the search for either unitary status or having the order removed, one way or the other we got here, the parties went to court, resulting in the August 2018 Desegregation Order. And this order, in some eyes, takes a few steps backwards. For example, it says that there should be 1 black teacher at each elementary, middle, and high school. And I think that that sets up what people all around have been talking about, a kind of system, a systemic. So, then it says it can be achieved by transferring, which to me is crazy for a few reasons. Because if you take this teacher from a school where they were wanted and hired or recruited, and then put them in an environment where they weren't recruited or wanted, it's like punishment, and you put that teacher in what I would consider a hostile work environment because that teacher was not even recruited or wanted over there. you also punish the principal who did the right thing, and you reward the one who didn't put in the same effort to meet the desegregation order. So that's why I wanted to read the 67, the 94, the 18, and then this one seems like we take a step backwards. So then we had, I've got a couple, I almost lost it. The judge had some comments. She asked one of the attorneys, she says, "We are now in a posture of not the school board having advisory committees for its day-to-day business. It's an advisory committee to comport with a federal court order." And she said, that's a different animal. So that makes it a little bit more important than just a regular advisory committee. Ms. Green, I think you might have been familiar with that. Anything else that I missed on that? If you, Yes, ma'am. You can sit here, I'll mask up. Or thank you, I'm sorry. Thank you so much.
So basically what Mr. Browning is talking about is in 2019, there was a report submitted to the judge on behalf of the progress of the district. The report basically ignored the Equities Committee 2019 recommendations, and they just submitted like a lot of information that we had already decided was incomplete, irrelevant, or outdated or inaccurate. And so after that, I wrote a letter to the judge, just asking the judge that the Equity Committee report to the judge that our voice was not being heard in the process. I discussed how difficult it was for us to get data when we needed it, and what we came up with as far as findings was diminished to a mere attachment exhibit. And so in this transcript that Mr. Browning is referencing, the judge addressed some of my concerns, and one of the things she addresses the relevancy of the Equity Committee and the importance of your work. I came tonight because Mr. Browning asked me to be here just really to discuss like the importance of you all's work and the relevance, and to help you better understand exactly what your functioning is, and to answer any questions that you may have, because I know that two of you are new and it could be a little confusing with what you have been charged with.
Thank you. You can hold right there if you would. There was this board workshop on November 1st of 2019, I believe it was, and recommendations made by the Equity Committee that the school board apparently asked Dr. Moxley to vet out for possible impacts, including financial impacts, and I think that was provided to the whole board. It seems that the board had intentions to adopt the recommendation because some of them were acted on. Thank you, Dr. Moore. I see it in the artifacts that you said some of these comport with what the recommendations were. So, sir, thank you for that. Members, if you'd like to, I think you probably have this chart here in front of you. And some of those items, do you have a copy of it for your memory?
I don't know.
Go on one. I'm going to go through it. Oh, I'm sorry. If you want to bring it up, that's fine. I don't know if everybody, what you...
Bring up the section of equity report and desegregation order that Moxley drafted? Oh, behind it, yeah.
I have it here. I can just read through it if you, oh. Okay, thank you. Okay, so just a few of these. Create a plan that specifically addresses mentoring African-American teachers and instructional staff, includes strategies to ensure that mentors are culturally competent and open to diversity. And I see that some of that was going on in one of those plans I read in there. I forget who that was under, so please forgive me. Some of this is all new to me, too. Been a few years since I've been here. And so she says funding, no funds are needed to complete that portion. Add more African-American mentors, publicize the criteria, ask principals to recommend teachers, and she says that there would be a possible collective bargaining and then financial impact. So there are a few things that, that Dr. Moxley had researched and was putting forward. Submit a step-by-step plan of how African-American teachers and instructional staff are recruited, and need to determine if any resources are needed. 3.2, district submits a monthly report. Are we in the, yes, to the Equity Committee of African American Recruitment, detailing recruitment efforts. And if that to the board members would be too much for the monthly, bi-monthly, even, it would be just something to show what was happening. Submit documentation showing that strategies of Section 3 have been implemented. If strategy not working, show what steps have been taken, and that's all she says, just staff time. Develop community. Is that me? Okay, sorry.
Mute your mic, please.
D. It's develop community partnerships, and I think I saw some of that in the artifacts that Dr. Moore was sending too. And so this looks like a better enhancement that at one time at least the board agreed to look at, and had Dr. Moxley even write up and find out what the financial impacts were. 3.7, board provide the superintendent HR authority to vet qualified candidates, hire and place them in teaching and instructional staff positions. And I'd really like to get rid of that word, because if a candidate has gone to Bethune, FAMU, IRCC, wherever they've gone, if they've got a degree and they've done student teaching, they're qualified. And we don't want to get where we say, okay, for you, we have to look for qualified candidates, and for you, just a candidate. And I think we've had that discussion at least a couple times. We don't want to get where we say, okay, for you, we have to look for qualified candidates, and for you, just a candidate. And I think we've had that discussion at least a couple times. We don't want to get where we say, okay, for you, we have to look for qualified candidates. That's interesting. That's amazing. I like that. Monthly report of African American teachers and instructional staff tracked by principals in schools each month. Rationale for the person hired, rationale for not hiring the African American, the scoring sheet for interview and questions asked, name of person or interview, hiring committee, and race. And I think you guys probably already have that information, because I know when I get a challenge by the union, we have to provide all of that, and we do. So we try to keep it of every position that we have hired for. Yearly detailed report of the resources. And then the Section 4, representation. Ms. Green, I think you kind of did this, so if you want to jump in at any time.
So basically, we spent the first year just going through the joint plan and looking at the joint plan and seeing where it was extremely vague and lacking in measurable goals as well as direction. And we created these recommendations so that any committee going forward doesn't have to start from scratch. We spent the first year frustrated asking for data that did not come back how we expected it to. Like, we would ask for one thing and we would receive another. And what we got, we felt like, okay, well, we can't measure compliance based off this information we've received. So we came up with these recommendations just to build some structure so that when you all come along, like, you didn't have to be like, okay, well, what does mentoring look like? What data should we be requesting? Like, you would have this to say, okay, yeah, this looks like something that, you know, I can dive into and be able to see if something is happening, and then for you to build upon it. Like, you can make these better than what we came up with, and that's what we wanted, just for each committee to improve based off the last committee's experience and notes and things they left. I just read an email that Dr. Warrior was on with Mr. Barefoot, where he gave transcript from workshops saying, oh, you know, the board didn't vote to approve these recommendations because you can't vote in a workshop. And that's true. The board did not vote to approve those recommendations in a workshop because that doesn't happen. They agreed to it in a workshop, but they did not vote. But Dr. Moxley's actions with this working document and allocation and implementation was the evidence needed to show that the board did agree to it and had moved forward. Also, just to go back to my legal background with contracts, if there's not a contract to show that there was an agreement, partial performance is the evidence needed in court to show that there was indeed a contract, because actions lining up with verbal agreements is very much the same as a written contract because it's the supporting evidence that's needed, just to be clear on this. And if you all feel that you need ratification in these areas before going forward, you're welcome to make them your own and also submit them to the board for them to approve them as well, if that's what you all need. But here with the Section 4 representation, we looked at the one shall endeavor to employ one teacher, which means that shall try to employ one teacher. Trying to employ one African-American teacher or transferring one teacher, we did not agree with that. So we didn't want a teacher to be transferred to a hostile environment, a school that they did not apply for, and now they're here with a principal that did not want to hire African-American teacher, and now I have to go there and be that one on the island by myself. So we said that it should reflect the aggregate student body. At the time, it was 17.2%, and then we said allowing for a variance of plus or minus 3%, not to fall below 5 teachers per school. At the time, we said a monthly report because there was no report. As of last year, I think it switched to quarterly reporting, and you all are welcome to change that as well. However often you feel that you want to see data, we said monthly because we wanted to be able to look at the data periodically ourselves without coming to our meeting and having like all this data to look at in one meeting. Also with this committee, basically you all decide the structure, how you want it, what you want on the agenda. We typically did about 3 areas a meeting, and after each section that we discussed, we had public input. I know you put it in the front, I think today you did with the emails, but if you wanted to save like the public input to like later on after you've discussed information, that's up to you all to do that. And then the other thing was with our meetings as committee members, you all represent your prospective bodies. So people will come to you with complaints. I ask you to make yourself available to them to share their complaints, their experiences, information they have, because that allows you to have topics to discuss here. Like, yes, Dr. Moore will bring data to you, but if people know that you're an open door and they can share like, hey, this is what I'm seeing at my school, or this is what the community is experiencing, this is what parents are telling me, it gives you a more real life perspective of where the district is and what areas you should be inquiring to and how you can assist the district with improving in those areas that people come to you about. I kept a lot of the people who talked to me anonymous because I wanted people to come to me and share their experience. So a lot of times I would just say the community instead of singling out that person, because I mean, it's intimidating, especially if I work for the district or if I'm a parent and my student is in the school, for me to come to you in the first place and then for you to get there and say, oh, Mr. Jones told me that his child's teacher, you know. So I just ask you all to be that representative for them. It can be overwhelming, but also you know that when people come to you about their concerns, that there's a level of trust and they believe in you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You said something about shall endeavor to also, and on page 6 of that judge's comment, she said, it would seem to me that the parties are still in the, oh, we would like to get this going stage, but it's time for the aspirational component to be gone. So get it done instead of, and we appreciate that, and we appreciate your hard work, and also appreciate my conversations with Dr. Moore, and I told him that if somebody came to me with something, that I was going to, if I heard of or saw a problem, I talked to him first, because in where I am, talk to me about a problem, and I'll see what I can do to get it taken care of. And I understand that, you know, being somewhat of a person who people want counseling from or something. All right, so principal meetings should include hiring practices and reviewing those practices. And then there's more in this. Social programs, I think you're probably working on, conduct a study, consider redoing a rezoning study. Now, I don't know how that is, but that was kind of strange to me, because all middle schools at the time when I was here had almost the same amount of numbers. So we know, I guess, things change at certain times, but those are some of the recommendations that looked like they were stronger. I was very disappointed with that, some of that 2018 language, as I told you, leaving somebody on an island, and I think you've heard, I said it, she said it, it's arcane, I guess, because even in 1967, some of that stuff was addressed. And here we are, and I know that you don't know, and you don't know, and I don't mean to say you don't know, but I've had that order in front of me for a number of years and could almost tell you it word for word and what it was supposed to be doing. And we made progress there. Because I think when I started, Dr. Long was the only black principal in the district when I started in HR. And then she turned a couple of schools into A schools and whatnot. So I know that there is quality people. There are quality people in the district who can do. So to say we're looking for qualified, you probably have them, some of those. Okay. So now, now that's the reason, basically, that I think we sort of in a place where we can't move forward right now, although I'd love to get to I sat up half the night looking at some of these, and I got some comments on them, on the artifacts, Dr. Moore. And then, and you know, some good and some questions, but I can't wait to get to those. But I think that we need to have those recommendations sit back in front of the board, because if the board didn't have a chance or didn't adopt them and they started working on them, maybe that's the next step to formally adopt those 2019 recommendations. So, and I'm kind of almost in a gray area here. I think probably maybe someone would have to introduce those back to the board. I don't know if that would be Dr. Moore or one of the board members. So I think we'll need a motion to resend these 2019 recommendations to the board and see if, since they started working on them, what the financial impacts were and what they said the work was, so that we can adopt those and move forward in a strong manner that we've been meaning to for the past 50 years. So is there any interest in a motion to send those to the board?
May I ask Ms. Green a question?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Ms. Green, can you speak to, very briefly, the reason that they weren't adopted by the board?
I think they just got right into the work. So basically, during the workshop, they agreed, and then they had Moxley draft up this document, and then they just started implementation. So it was mainly that no one procedurally said, oh, wait a minute, we have to procedurally, formally approve these. So that's basically because, as Mr. Browning was stating, like they started doing implementation. They did the Bridge the Gap plan from Pinellas and turned it into the African American Achievement Plan. So they started doing the work. They just didn't formally agree to it. The reason, I guess, Mr. Browning feels like it's important for it to go forward because it's foundational. If you don't have these recommendations, then you all are going to have to go back to the joint plan and make suggestions for standards to heighten the standard for the district. But if this is approved and you go forward, then you're starting here and you're going through and making suggestions, and it eliminates you having to redo work that has already been done, basically.
Thank you. I wanted to make sure that was in the record. So I make a motion to represent this to the board.
Motion. I have a question, if you don't mind. Hi, my question is for Rashawn.
Okay.
I'm curious, the documents that I received coming in drip and drabs, so I was getting information even as recent as this week. I'm wondering if that was your experience. And then also, some documents are not outlined clearly. They're labeled on it, no indication of when they were created, by whom, no file date, or file information, but if you want to come back, was this your experience?
Yes, and when you get that information, then you call it out and you send it back. So, because there should be, when there's tables, there should be a key for the table, there should be a heading on that table, like it should be easy to read, and it should be in Excel format as well as printed if you need it. So that's some of the things that we encountered, like getting data, not knowing what that was in response to, and frankly, the district should not still be doing that, because we went back and forth for 2 years about data just not understanding where this came from, what request it was related to, and what this is actually saying.
So before we bring this motion, can we add that to the motion, that these documents be formatted with that information so that it's clearly outlined when we receive it, it's coming, if it's need for revision, you know, we'll go back and needs to be updated? If there's not even page numbers on some of the documents that I have.
I think that is actually in here, because one of them, it should say easily readable tables in Excel format, but yeah, you could add it.
And I guess that's my concern as well, is that we are talking about a 2-year-old document. And as for myself, I don't feel comfortable sending something back to the board that I haven't even had a chance to go through myself. So just to easily say send it back, I'm not comfortable with that. I would like for us to discuss these recommendations and really prioritize the priorities here. These are a lot of recommendations. And if we're talking about, you know, now where the rubber needs to meet the road and making some progress, I think we need to prioritize some priorities, really make sure that we're all in agreement as a new committee as to, you know, how the wording of these recommendations, and what we as a committee would like to go to the board.
I don't disagree with you. I would only add that I am not comfortable in making recommendations about something I can't readily identify, because I can speak to it now, but later on, I have no ability to reference in a meeting like this or for another committee. This is the same document because it's not plainly identified. So that is my question. How do we rectify that matter? And I'd love to take the time and go through each item substantively to have this discussion.
I had recommended to you all that you go back to the previous board meeting and you review it, because this document will be in the agenda minutes. It is something that Dr. Moxley presented to the board. Now, what I would like for you to understand what Browning is saying, he's not saying that this governs what you all decide to do. He's saying that you take it back to the board and the board approve that they basically just support where the 2019 board was at that time. And from here, it's something for you to build upon. It's not saying, oh, now you are governed by these recommendations. It's saying if you don't want to start from scratch, you can trust your last board, your last committee, as this board would trust their last board if they approve it. That's all it is, just continuation. But if you want to start from scratch and go through what we went through.
No, I don't think it's a matter of starting from scratch. I just think it's a level of comfort if this is going to be a starting point. As you said, this is a time to discuss and become familiar with what we're up against. And I think that in that sense, we as a committee need to make certain that we are. This is new to me. So again, even though, I appreciate the work, I honor the work, but it's just as I said, just to become familiar and to make certain that the wording, because there are a lot of these documents that I've looked at, the wording is very loose. and it could use some revision. So before I say, or maybe we can have the wording to say just that it is a starting point, that it is not set in stone. I mean, if we want to be clear, that wording needs to be there as well.
Well-
So as long as that wording is in there, and that we know that, again,
I
where
think
we
that-
all stand.
But that's what the joint plan says, that, you know, that it's for you all to edit every year to move forward. So I think you misunderstand what Browning is saying. He's just saying that this is where we were last year, which if our meetings did not end prematurely, it would have been solidified. But it will be, because I am writing the judge about the situation that happened anyway. But just for you all to not have to, like, you're trying to understand and maneuver. A lot of what we did was to help you understand what you will be looking for, what you'll be asking for, what that looks like. It's not to control your board or even direct your board, but to give you some foundation so that you can understand better. Which for me, looking at the joint plan, it was nothing. I mean, we basically had to figure out, you know, what compliance looks like, what the information that we should be asking for looks like, what we should be receiving looks like. And then once we came up with these recommendations, it gave us some foundation. And we actually used these last year. So that's why I don't understand why there's even a debate, because we used these same recommendations last year and created the report card. And Chris, who was on the board with me the previous year, like, it was understood for us. So I don't understand the debate now that I'm going, like, this, it isn't valid. But,
No, it's not a matter of being invalid.
no, you weren't a part of the invalidation. No, that happened. Side.
Well, I was asking for clarity because I saw the 2019 inaugural Equity Committee report. I had that document for some time now, but I only got a section of equity report and desegregation order this morning. So prior to the meeting, I had a lot of questions about what exactly was going to be, you know, the outcome of this evening and what we would have. And then I finally, before the meeting started, had an opportunity to go through this. I just wanted to be certain that I wasn't voting on approving it without having more time to look more thoroughly. And then also to give, to your point, I agree that the board needs to, you know, make a final decision about what we're finding, because at this point, I certainly wouldn't want to start from scratch. I agree that what's out here is more than sufficient data to how we can advance this.
Yeah, so this, if you would look at the 2019 PowerPoint recommendation, Dr. Moxley just basically cut and pasted the recommendations, and she did it by section, so she just numbered them. So if you would go to the PowerPoint, that's basically what she did. But you can use this if you like. To me, it doesn't matter, honestly. I'm just here to assist. I've transitioned. You know, I just care about the students and the employees affected by it. This is your committee to own and transform and create as you feel. I just worked, my committee and I worked hard so that you all would not have to start from scratch, and I would not want that for you. But
So, right, and there's a lot more information, obviously, than what you started with, and the district has provided a lot of the information that's been requested, but it has been a lot of sorting through and understanding. So I do stand by my motion to submit it before the board, and then, of course, with the new questions and all of the research that needs to go into improving it and asking for clarity. But I think the nuts and bolts of what's been presented, I do still submit that as a motion to carry forward. And if it doesn't, that's okay, but I do believe that we should honor that work.
Yes, I want to say that if you look on, it was at least a year's worth of work presented in 2019, in November of 2019. Obviously somewhat agreed upon because this is what
Has
Dr.
been
Moxley
happening,
came forward with. If you look on page 9 of where it says the joint plan, action steps, and artifacts, page 9, it says, "The action steps also support the following recommendations made by the 2019 Equity Committee." So we are already working with those recommendations, but there was some,
Formality to send it.
A formality to send it to the board.
Formality to send it to the board.
yes.
And then also in the African American Achievement Plan, under the teaching quotas, it did discuss
All
the
of
aggregate student population, that, that was the aim as well.
Yes, I'm not trying to rework everything. No way.
Absolutely.
And there's no question that it's gonna take some time for analysis and to synthesize it all, because it's a lot of information. Even if you look at the historical nature of it by itself.
As a matter of fact, I almost didn't get out the car until I saw Karen Mallett's come in. I'm like, I don't know if I want to go in there with those, but anyway, I'm here. So it's a lot of work that I would not want to do over with, but it does strengthen that 2018. And like I said before, that is the first thing that I saw. We've stepped, 50 years back with going only one teacher. So that means today that if every school got rid of every black teacher instead of one, they're still in compliance, according to that 2018 plan. What kind of stuff is that? And I think the board recognized that. I think the committee recognized that, and that's one of the areas, that's why that's in here. And it just boggles my mind that it's so hard to do this, because when the superintendent says, do the evaluations, we get them done. When the superintendent says to have a PTA or SAC meeting, you get it done. Everything gets done until it comes time to hire a black employee. Oops, we can't get that done. And that's the way it looks. Bottom line. So we had a motion and a second.
I second Carol
Okay.
motion.
And so we've had some discussion, and are you a little better? I want everybody comfortable to know that we want to move in the right direction.
Right direction.
And I do appreciate the clarity and asking for, and the time to review it, and also to be able to make changes and make it better. Obviously, when you're doing an inaugural piece of work, it's not gonna be perfect. So I definitely acknowledge that there's work to be done, for sure. But I think that since the efforts are already underway,
Oh,
we
absolutely.
should proceed with that formality, so.
And if nobody wants to put on anybody work just for work.
Right.
And this last line of this 2018 plan on page 8 says, "The parties agree that changes to this plan may be made in writing and upon mutual agreement. If something it does not promote what we want and it's too much work," and so we skip that part. It's a back and forth. It's an agreement. It's a partnership to get where we want to go. But when this wonderful school board is gone years down the road, and I remember Peggy Jones having, at one point, the most black employees in the district and an A school. So when she's gone, and the chairman's gone, Mr. Barefoot, and the superintendent's gone, and we get somebody else come in, we want something that sits there that we can reference and say, this is how it's supposed to be done. Because people leave, and if things aren't in place, it's just not done right.
I agree.
So we've got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I heard 3. Did I hear anybody else over there?
Aye.
Okay. Nays? All right. Thank you. So that's what we would really like to do, so we can jump on this work. Almost to the end. Dr. Moore, Mr. Barefoot, NAACP, SCLC, all of you in the room, thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Dr. Moore, for having staff here so we can kind of hear some of the concerns, and we all start pushing this great work. Not pointing fingers at anybody, because everybody has the right the rights for kids in their minds. I think everybody wants to do the right thing. We just have to fall back on, hey, we're all one race, and it's love, and we treat each other the same way we'd want to be treated. That being said, for our next meeting, I think the school board meets on the 9th, if I'm correct. We're due to have a joint status update on the 15th, and I'm thinking maybe perhaps by the 18th or something, we would have input or resolution by the board and meet to discuss and assess what they've done with the recommendations or whatever. And I'll have to talk to Dr. Moore about the next date. So at least by the 18th, I would like to put that as a tentative date for the next meeting, and then we can get together with what's due afterwards from then. Any thoughts?
March 18th.
Yes. The 18th would be another Thursday like this, and we'll have some feedback from the school board. And then hopefully at that time, we'll be looking at what all the discussions and the presentations and what pieces and parts and what we think we need to do to go forward. So then Dr. Moore, you have any comment or? Okay, all right, yes, sir. Chairman Barefoot, anything? All right, thank you. All right, Dr. Jones, anybody else? Okay. Well, thank you very much,
Was there
and,
community input?
I'm sorry.
No community input?
Yeah. You have something you want?
No, I don't.
Oh, would you,
I
oh,
saw Mr. Stewart, so I didn't know if he was here to speak.
community input, Mr. Stewart, anybody?
Yeah, well, Governor, I would never let this opportunity pass. Been here. And I would like a show of hands if I may.
Just a second, because nobody can hear you unless you're on here.
Show of hands
It won't be in the minutes, because you can't hear them.
in your county.
Okay.
I couldn't hear the question.
Yeah, quite a bit of us here. I'd like a show of hands for anybody who is over 71 years old that was educated in your county. So only two of us. I like to say, Mr. Browning, I commend you all and our former chairman for coming up with a plan, seemingly to me, that outlined the how to get this job done. Now, for some of us who are talking about the plan may be 2 years old, this plan, the desegregation order, is 55 years old. We have kids who are still in this county who are not experiencing equity on a level playing field. They waited with me. I waited all my life. I was here during the desegregated system. And I understand what it feels like to be discriminated against. I understand what it feels like to get books with pages torn out of them for us to read. I understand the true meaning of racism. I do. I've been part of this for many, many years. Now we have an opportunity to keep other kids from feeling this way. A real plan, not something so vague that people has come up with like we've been doing. Not only that, folks, I read the last judge's order concerning the fourth status report, and it didn't sound too good. The judge is getting tired of this too. Somehow you're going to have to come up with something concrete, something that is objective, that the judge going to, otherwise he's going to pull the rug out from everybody's feet. We have a superintendent that's willing to do it. And Dr. Moore, you told me that some of the same things they have in this plan that you agree 100% with the 17%, with all of this. Yes, we talked about this. Now, why is there a problem now? Because what this plan is 2 years old, and you got a desegregation order that's 54 years old. why are we having a problem with this? If it worked, if it's something gonna benefit our children, let's get to work on it. Let's stop playing all these games, stop writing these crazy status reports to the judge that the judge is getting angry with. Let's stop this stuff about because we can't agree. It doesn't seem like if all us got education, there's a scripture in the Bible say, how can two walk together except they agree? Evidently, we're not walking together because we can't agree on anything for our children. It's okay for your kids if they are all successful and all doing well. But the problem is with the desegregation order, the judges, they took and designated a group of kids who wasn't doing well. And guess who they are? They're people who look like me. We cannot continue to sit up and send this garbage to the court simply because some people, some lawyers getting paid. Simply because of the fact that we, as real educators, can't agree on what's best for all children. If some kids are benefiting and others are not, somehow, if we are the educators, we have to be concerned for all kids. All kids matter. But the black kids matter because in 1964, the court decided that they were being discriminated against racially. And they were not on a level playing field. Now we have an opportunity to make the playing field level. Stop moving the goalposts. And let's get this job done. There's nothing, I read that report, there's nothing I've seen that would not aid this process. I don't care about reaching unitary status, but what I care about is that every black kid, every kid in this county have an equal and a fair opportunity to an education in this county. Didn't mean to take too long.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And once again, I requested information, and Dr. Moore and his staff, thank you. Got everything I needed, got it in the Excel form. Everything was certainly up to par. A whole lot I have to go through, but we'll get that in time. Okay, and I think we're about to leave. Mr. Brown, you there? You have anything, Mr. Brown?
Yes, sir. I'm here. Can you hear me, Mr. Browning?
Yes, sir.
To the Equity Committee, I appreciate your efforts. Please be advised that a lot of hard work has been done, that the reason that the judge is not getting stuff is a lot of obstructionism going on. You are an independent body. Do what is best for the children. Do what is best to move this district forward. This is not a vacation. This is not easy work. It's pain and suffering so that it can have sustainability, verifiability, and we can look to the future. So do your work and be cognizant of the fact that you're doing it for the children and you're not doing it to please people, but you're doing it so that 30 years from now, our children can move forward. Thank you for your hard work.
Thank you so much. Can we call this meeting to a close at 7:00 p.m.? We'll see you next time.